Aeseon prevents Gwon-sik from taking a job with Sangil, but survival becomes incredibly difficult due to the overwhelming influence of Sangil's family. Struggling to secure employment, Gwon-sik and Aeseon face severe food shortages. Even their landlords refuse to offer any assistance. Reflecting on Sean's significance, Aeseon remembers visiting her grandmother for help but ultimately cannot bring herself to ask. Later, she shares their hardships with Gwon-sik. Unexpectedly, Aeseon's grandmother arrives, offering her savings and treasured possessions. It turns out that Aeseon's mother had asked her grandmother to take care of her as a way to reconcile her guilt with gratitude. Determined to honor her grandmother's kindness, Gwon-sik and Aeseon make a promise to succeed. They invest in a boat, and Aeseon gives birth to a son, finally gaining acceptance from Gwon-sik's family. In a heartfelt gesture, Gwon-sik purchases the house where Aeseon's mother once lived, providing Aeseon with the first real home she has ever had. As they settle into their new life, Aeseon has a dream about her mother. Taking it as a sign, she rushes to the hospital with a neighbor's help and gives birth to her third child. Later, she rises to the position of deputy president, working alongside Sangil to enforce regulations, including a crackdown on casual dance practices. During an inspection, Aeseon encounters Sangil's deeply unhappy wife and helps her escape. In a moment of bitter reflection, Sangil's wife wishes that Aeseon had married Sangil instead. That evening, Gwon-sik invites Aeseon onto the boat, but she hesitates, wary of old superstitions. However, when GM Mayoung boards, Aeseon decides to challenge the belief, steps onto the boat, and paints its name. As the episode concludes, she feels a profound sense of happiness as Gwon-sik kisses her. The episode 6 centers on a family dealing with a devastating loss after a major disaster in 1978–79. It starts with a moment of foreshadowing. One of the characters regrets not giving a final hug, setting up the emotional gut punch that follows. The episode then jumps into the story of a mother, father, and their children facing an impending storm and the aftermath of a tragedy that forever changes them. Aeseon rushes to help GM Mayoung with her bicycle just as a typhoon looms, leaving her children in the care of a drowsy neighbor. However, upon returning home, she finds them missing. The entire town joins the search, ultimately finding her older son safe, but discovering her younger son lifeless near the seawall. Devastated, Aeseon and Gwon-sik mourn for 3 days, struggling with grief and guilt. Aeseon recalls her mother's words on resilience, while their eldest son carries a heavy burden of guilt. Gwon-sik also recognizes a similar weight on GM Mayoung. Determined to move forward, he returns to work while Aeseon resumes her responsibilities, though she develops a deep bitterness toward the sea. She confesses her self-blame to Gwon-sik, but he reassures her that they must continue living for their remaining children. Years later, Aeseon discovers that Gwon-sik has secretly blamed himself all along for not saving their son in time. Their younger son, young Gwon-sik, also breaks down under similar guilt. However, amidst their grief, the quiet support of the community emerges. Food is left at their door, and their landlords secretly keep their rice jar filled just enough for survival. Aeseon recalls confronting her landlord, not for help, but for pretending to be indifferent despite their acts of kindness. She also learns that her stepfather's wife had been secretly paying their rent and that the Haenyeo women had saved seafood for her while she was pregnant. Time passes, and GM Mayoung successfully passes her exams and prepares to leave for college in Seoul. There, Aeseon and Gwon-sik meet her future fiancé, Park Hwai-bam. The episode ends with Park Hwai-bam and GM Mayoung together while Aeseon and Gwon-sik walk hand in hand. Aeseon suggests selling their cabbage field to buy a house, but Gwon-sik gently insists that she keep it. The eldest daughter, now navigating young adulthood, has a moment where she meets someone who might play a role in her future. There's a brief subplot where her father seems protective of her, hinting at how much the past has shaped their present lives. The episode ends with lingering sadness, but also a message about resilience. The family will never be the same, but they must keep moving forward. The foreshadowing, the emotional weight, and the storytelling all come together to deliver one of the most powerful episodes of the series. This episode takes on two parallel stories, one centered on a son, the mother, and the other on her daughter Jaeyoung, both facing struggles of class, gender, and social expectations in late 1980s South Korea. In Dodongri, a son is caught in a political battle against town chief Bu Sang-gil as government officials attempt to clear street vendors ahead of the 1988 Seoul Olympics torch relay. A son stands up for the vendors, marking the beginning of a rivalry that escalates when she challenges Sang-gil for the fishing co-op chief position. The election turns personal as Sang-gil attacks Aeseon's family, particularly her son Yonggun, who is perceived as a troublemaker. Aeseon's campaign faces dirty politics, but her integrity, community support, and the exposure of Sang-gil's scandalous behavior lead to her historic victory as the first female co-op chief. The town's elderly women reflect on her late mother's pride, emphasizing how Aeseon has defied societal expectations. Meanwhile, in Seoul, Aeseon's daughter Gaeong struggles with class divides while working as a tutor for Jenny, a wealthy but academically weak girl. Jenny's mother offers Gaeong a life-changing deal: take Jenny's college entrance exam in exchange for an apartment in Seoul. Despite her financial struggles, Gaeong refuses, upholding her integrity. However, instead of gratitude, she faces humiliation, falsely accused of theft as she leaves. The contrast between her principles and her treatment underscores the rigid class barriers that persist despite her education. The episode closes with a poignant reflection on how parents wish for a gentle world for their children, but reality remains harsh. Aeseon's victory in her small fishing village contrasts with her daughter's continued struggles in a supposedly more advanced city. Yet, both mother and daughter display the same resilience, proving that integrity carries forward across generations. The episode ties personal struggles to South Korea's broader socio-political changes in the 1980s, highlighting how traditional values clashed with modernization and economic shifts. As Aeseon embraces her new leadership role, Gwon-sik takes a rare trip to Seoul under the excuse of visiting a museum but truly hoping to see his daughter. While waiting for Jaeyoung, he runs into Jong Byum, a young man interested in her. Jong Byum tries to impress Gwon-sik, but the father quickly sees through him. When Jong Byum admits that Jaeyoung has rejected him more than 8 times, Gwon-sik realizes his daughter is mirroring Aeseon's past, pushing away someone she might actually care about, just as Aeseon once did with him. Back at the police station, Jaeyoung insists on her innocence and refuses to call her parents, not wanting to burden them. Unexpectedly, she is rescued by a mysterious servant, a woman from the same Busan motel that Aeseon and Gwon-sik helped years ago. Using blackmail, she forces the wealthy mother to drop the charges, proving that kindness has a way of returning when least expected. Meanwhile, the spoiled student Jaeyoung was tutoring ends up in trouble herself, blaming her mother for raising her without discipline. This contrast highlights how Jaeyoung's hardships and the values her parents instilled in her gave her true strength, while privilege alone left her student weak and directionless. Later that night, Jaeyoung finally calls Aeseon, breaking down in tears. She learns that her father had come to Seoul looking for her, making her feel even guiltier. She has always felt like a burden, believing her parents sacrificed too much for her. Now, she struggles with the guilt of pursuing her dreams while they remain behind, still suffering. In a touching flash-forward, we see Jaeyoung's wedding, where Gwon-sik tells her that no matter how far she flies, her father will always be there for her. The final moments, the price of a dream. In the final scenes of episode 8, Aeseon returns to her old high school, where she once dreamed of being a poet. She watches as a group of students compete in a poetry contest, and when one of the elderly villagers submits a poem Aeseon once wrote, she unexpectedly wins the competition. Even after everything she has been through, Aeseon's voice still holds power. However, there is a heartbreaking truth. She can't bring herself to look at any boy the same age as Dongmin when he died. The grief remains, forever shaping her. Similarly, Gwon-sik imagines what their son would have been like, buying food for boys his age, as if trying to fill the void in his heart. At the university, Jaeyoung's classmates discuss loss, and Jerem makes an insensitive comment. Nobody at school knows that Jae-young lost a brother, but the weight of that grief is always with her. The episode closes with Aeseon and Gwansik making one final sacrifice. They sell Aeseon's mother's home to pay for Jae-young's studies in Japan. Just as Aeseon once gave up her own dreams, she now gives up her past to ensure Jae-young has a future. The last scene is Aeseon dreaming of her mother, finally talking about Dongmin. She is strong, but some wounds never heal. As the family moves into a small apartment, Jae-young is finally free to fly. But at what cost? Final thoughts. The weight of love v. sacrifice. Episodes 7 and 8 masterfully balance hope and heartbreak, showing how Aeseon's sacrifices are now reflected in Jae-young's journey. The series continues to highlight themes of class struggle, parental sacrifice, and the weight of expectations, leaving us with a powerful message. A parent's love is often measured in the things they let go of, rather than the things they hold on to. As Jae-young flies toward her future, Aeseon and Gwansik remain behind, carrying the weight of every choice they made for her. When Life Gives You Tangerines proves once again that it is not just a drama, it is a story that leaves a lasting mark on the heart.